two is Perfect Days from 2023, directed and written by Wim Wenders and Takuma Takasaki, starring Koji Yakusho, Tokio Emoto, and Arisa Nakano. Quick logline: Hirayama cleans public toilets in Tokyo, lives life in simplicity and daily tranquility. Some encounters also lead him to reflect on himself. This is a weird tagline, but it does it. This is the movie.
It's a movie. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, this is a Japanese movie. I think in one of our older episodes of films that shaped our love of movies, I brought a Wim Wenders movie to that.
Wings of
Berlin.
Desire.
Wings of Desire, exactly. Obviously, I'm a big fan of that and big fan of Paris, Texas. So when this movie was announced, I was very curious about it, but I just didn't have the time to watch it all of last year. Also kind of came at the end of last year. And like I mentioned earlier, I was, moving to LA and such. So it just sort of kind of escaped me. And then I finally watched it a few months ago and was kind of blown away just by the simplicity of the movie. I'll get into the movie a little bit later, but the reason why I put it on the list was, I came here for a new job, and work is such a critical part of who we are, especially in this country, right? Like our lives revolve around work, and there's so much that comes with it, like joy and success and feeling of accomplishment, but also all the other stuff that doesn't work out. And so easy to sort of complain about it, or drive yourself in the ground, or drive other people in the ground, or point fingers at whoever, right, of why things are the way they are. And it was something about watching this movie this year in the headspace that I was, just wrestling with some of these themes in my own life, and just being hit by the simplicity and joy that this guy feels in doing work that most of us would think is menial work, probably even below a lot of people, but just gets so much of joy doing that. And it's not like, oh, I'm just going to do this job to pay for the bills so I can then go and stare at the trees and take their photos, or read my book, or just have peace and quiet in my life. No, he actually does like the work he does. He starts every day with a smile. He has his routine. He has his cassettes that he puts in his car, and he feels a sense of purpose, and he helps the people. He feels like he's contributing to society by cleaning toilets and just, being a part of the fabric of society. He's living life, but he's also not defined by this job. He has other passions in his life, and I'll speak more on the movie, but it just hit me very hard just looking at this guy's life and just his face, how Wim Wenders' camera captures his face. It's just so moving, and there's so much depth and joy to that. So yeah, that's why this is my number two.
Yeah, I had not seen the movie before this podcast, and I really enjoyed it. I thought, like you said, captures, I think, I want to say work-life balance here, but I think this guy does have some big things missing from his personal life. He
Oh
does
yeah.
seem very lonely and disconnected,
Yeah.
but he is, like you said, he has a job that is menial, that he still finds joy in it. It's not necessarily even like pride of his work or anything. He just enjoys the actual work itself of cleaning these toilets. And I love the morning routines that they show of him, like getting ready, getting the keys and getting the cleaners and having everything organized in his van. And the way he goes about like cleaning these toilets is very like methodical, and he has his little systems, but he's happy doing it. It's something that gives him happiness, because also it helps other people. Like I love his interactions with the various customers at different times that come in to use the restroom, or the scene where he finds the little boy who's lost from his mom and trying to help him out.
Right.
So he's definitely kind of woven into the fabric of what the life is like in this Tokyo suburb, instead of seen as just a menial worker who's not part of society. He's just like a faceless kind of maid who's supposed to do these things. So I thought that was really nice, and just a good outlook on when you have a job that does give you joy, no matter what it is. It doesn't need to be something that I think everyone would say, "Oh, I'd love to do this." Like, hey, some people like doing jobs like this. I mean, honestly, when this podcasting endeavor of ours, when we retire off the riches of this, I would love to honestly do the exact same job this guy's doing. It's been a dream of mine just to clean bathrooms. I was like, this actually looks really great. I'd love a job like this. It would give me the happiness, I think,
Yeah.
that, not that I don't enjoy our podcasting careers, That's very good too. You know, you got to pay the bills. But no, I was like, oh, this looks great, and I think it also is just a reminder too of, you know, a lot of people say things like, oh, if we had a society where no one had to work and there was no labor market and people just got to do what they wanted, who would clean the sewers and who would, you know, be the people who clean the bathrooms? Some people like it. They just, you can
Right.
tell he is doing it, like you said, not for the money because he has some rich other life that he has a hobby that it's very expensive or whatever. No, it's just he enjoys the simplicity of it. And I thought that was refreshing and really just joyous to watch, actually, seeing someone who
Totally.
just enjoys what he does. It's great.
Totally. And then the joy that he gets from there and brings it to the rest of his life too. And yes, there's a lot of loneliness there, but I wouldn't classify him as a loner either, because the interactions he had, like, when he goes to a restaurant, when he goes to the bookstore, he is connected, but he's just not overly in it. And then his passions for music and reading and photography. That's the other thing, I just drew so much empathy for just humanity watching this movie. You're sitting, I don't know, in a subway, or you're in line for coffee, and you see somebody, and it's so easy to just assume in a second what their lives are. If they look a certain way or if they dress a certain way, we have no idea what their passions are and what else they do. And it's easy to sort of think about people, I think, in a more negative light. And I try to kind of uphold the mantra of, like, no matter what side you think you might be, ultimately we are all humans. What connects us is kindness, I think. And this was just another reminder of that. You have to look at people in a whole way, not just what they posted one day, or the fight they had one day, or the thing they got agitated by. It's everything else in between. And I think this guy kind of really lives that, upholds that. Like, it's life between the lines that actually is where the joy is. So that's beautiful. I thought.
I agree. And it was a reminder to me too that joy is different for every person. Because honestly, I
Yeah.
was about halfway through this movie. I'm like, damn, this guy is just a lonely, sad man who has nothing outside of just this job he has. He has no family or friends. He doesn't talk much. And then by the end of the movie, I'm like, well, but he's happy doing this. Just because that's what
Yeah.
make me happy. Like I want to be surrounded by friends and family and have connection, but some people don't. And I'm not. I then sort of like pulled back my judgment on this guy's life and been like, hey, look, he seems to love. He has solo passions. He likes reading and photography that he's just by himself. And he when he interacts with people, he has great interaction. The scene where he's helping
Hmm.
the guy who's dying of cancer, and they're playing those little games. So it's not like he's
Right.
has social anxiety disorder at all. He just is
No.
someone who doesn't need to have that constant interaction with other people. And at the end of the movie, I'm like, I'm happy for this guy because for a while and about halfway through, I'm like, this is where's his family? And then you sort of learn he has problems with the family. Like, oh, geez, like maybe this movie is just a sad movie about this lonely guy. And then by the end, I'm like, no, actually, he's happy, he's sad, he's everything, right? But this is not. I don't have to take pity
Exactly.
on him. Is sort of where my evolution
No.
of with this character, like during the 2 hours of the film, I changed my opinion, and towards the end, which maybe I'm sure we'll talk about the final scene.
Oh my
It was just
gosh.
like so powerful. I'm like, wow, like this is it. Everything is tied up in this one shot.
I mean, what a masterclass in acting and movie making. There are no big monologues, there are no explosions, there's nothing. And we can just get into it. It's just the camera on his face. And it's all of those things, like you mentioned. There's peace and resolve, but there's also loneliness. There is also desire for this woman that at the restaurant that I think he feels something for, but
Right.
now he's discovered that she had an ex who's dying, and maybe that's made him think about his mortality. There's a niece character who shows up and stays with him, and clearly he has such a avuncular kind of love towards her. And even that girl is so sweet and nice and has no judgment towards the work he does, wants to help out and just be
Yeah.
there and join
Yeah.
him. And even though he's like, oh, maybe you shouldn't come and you'll get bored or whatever. And maybe he feels that she will judge, but no, there isn't. But then there's complications with his sister and
His
their
father.
parents and his
Yeah.
father and what happened
Hmm.
there. So yeah, maybe it's a choice he made to kind of walk away from all of that, but that doesn't mean you don't miss it. And that's what the final shot captures, just all of those things of what life could be. But I'm also happy, but also not fully there. But you got to keep going. You got to keep driving. You
Right.
listen to that music, and you also have to show up for life. He makes a choice every morning that when he leaves, it's like crack of dawn. he puts a smile on his face.
I love that. Yeah.
I love that. It's a
He
choice, you know,
it is a
and
choice. Yeah.
yeah, and it's another such a beautiful thing. Like, yeah, we can show up, and my partner often reminds me of this. Like, when I'm like wound up on something, he just says, Karan, just smile. And I do that. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, this is not worth me stressing about actually at all.
Exactly.
It's a choice you can make. And, especially the world that we live in, people are up in arms about all sorts of stuff that they hate or dislike. And I think it's easier to hate and rebel. I'm not saying, give in. No, stand for what you stand for,
Hmm.
but also show up with a smile and be kind and good, Otherwise, you are doing the same as the people you are unhappy with.
Or you're just
Then,
unhappy. Like
or you're just unhappy.
you're not spreading happy. I mean, I think the
Right.
more people that are happy, the more other people get happy, and it's like a virus in a positive way. So if
Right.
you're sort of showing up negative and being frustrated all the time, that's not spreading joy to anybody else, and you might actually then be spreading frustrations too. And I think this
Yeah.
movie does. I think this character especially in all of his interactions outside of himself, basically with other people, it's all from kindness, and even his annoying, you might say, coworker who's this young kid who doesn't
Yeah.
care and gives no, and he's trying to like sell his tapes and
Oh,
stuff and is
no.
wondering about his girlfriend, blah blah blah, this or that. He could easily be like, you know what, get out, like you suck, like don't talk to me. But he doesn't, and he gives him that money at the end to help him out on his date. I like that part too. He's like, here, just
Yeah.
take some money, even though he's not rich at all, the main character in any way.
No.
But he is just nice to everyone because why not? Like it's free. Being nice is free, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I look forward to watching this again. Also, I think we are covering a lot of place movies on our list. So this is another place movie. It's not showing you the obvious Tokyo stuff that you've probably seen in Lost in Translation or other, not that Lost in Translation is obvious, it's like an amazing movie,
Right,
but
right, right.
but this movie kind of shows other sides of Tokyo from his point of view. A lot of it is seen from a car or his van. I
Hmm.
love that too. It's something I mostly drive, but when I'm not driving, I love doing that. I'm usually not on my phone. I just look out and look up and down, just kind of observing the city wherever I'm at. So it was fun to just, be on next to him, sitting in the van, just looking
Yeah.
at Tokyo. I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Yeah, that I thought it was really cool slice of what Tokyo is like through this guy's lens. It was also interesting just in terms of the genesis of this movie. I went down a huge several Wikipedia rabbit holes, but in the short of it is this was essentially going to be an advertisement that the company who created these toilets wanted to have
Which are
some.
amazing, by the way.
Yeah, I mean they look incredible. I mean I've never
Yeah.
been to Tokyo, so I haven't experienced them
Yeah. I
firsthand.
have some of them and they're amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just incredible. And they built these and wanted someone to shoot an ad for it, and it evolved into this movie, which is just such a sort of bizarre in a way, like evolution of what this thing was, which is essentially supposed to just be a commercial work to promote the toilets because it was the 2020 Olympics, and it turned into this. I mean, that is just crazy to me to think
Amazing.
about, like where this thing started. It wasn't something where Vin Vendors like, oh, I want to write this story. No, it's like,
Right.
okay, this company's like promote our toilets, and then this is what he delivers. Is just so cool to think. It makes the movie cooler to me somehow. It's like
Yeah.
that's where this started. Like talk about getting the assignment and like over delivering because he was supposed to shoot like a commercial or a short film. It's like no, let's actually make this really touching story about humanity and stuff, and not just saying how cool these toilets are to make this company feel better for the Olympics. Just crazy.
That's amazing. I think I did know that, but I've forgotten about it. So that's a good reminder. Speaking of Wim Wenders, I really think maybe people don't agree with me on this, which is fine, but there's a lot of discourse, right? Who is allowed to tell whose story? And there might be people like, oh, this movie is made by a German person who's not a Japanese. And what do they know about our culture and what have you? But I don't know. I sort of think that as long as you're being truthful to your experience and you're trying to kind of show that, anybody should be able to make any story and tell it. Because it's, first of all, there's no cap on the stories that people, we are humans, this is what we were born to do, to tell
Right.
stories. And
Hmm.
it's actually interesting to see stories from different points of view, especially told by somebody who's not from there, but clearly somebody who has spent a lot of time there and has some appreciation and understanding for the place, but more importantly, understanding for humanity, which is
Right.
universal anyway.
Exactly.
This story could take place anyway. I love that. I remember when this movie came out, there was little of that coming up because
Mm,
obviously the media loves this, right? This is another
right.
clickbait item
Yep.
that, oh,
Yep.
why are you making this movie? And I remembered that, and I watched the movie and I was like, what are you talking about? I'm so glad and grateful that this movie exists. And so yeah, Wim Wenders is amazing. Please keep making movies.
The only films I've seen of his are the two we have on this podcast. I enjoyed both of them, but I just want to second everything you just said. I'm 100% in agreement on that. It's like humans are humans, and humans tell stories about other humans. And this movie didn't isn't about Japan. It's about humanity
Right.
and getting wound up about those sort of things, especially when the movie's good. Is like,
Right.
what's the point of this? It's that going back to the negativity thing you mentioned earlier.
Right.
Like, why are you mentioning this again? Like, what's the point of attacking a film because of who made it? Like, okay, if
Yeah.
it's great, it is. So shouldn't we just be happy that the movie exists instead of trying to
Right.
tear it down in different ways?
Exactly. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. This is one of those movies like make yourself a nice tea or coffee on a Saturday afternoon and just, get comfortable and get like a nice cozy blanket and watch this.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a small but impactful film. Like it's small, there's
Impactful
not a lot
film.
that really happens from like a plot standpoint, but it definitely overwhelms you and just takes you makes you think about a lot of things, make you feel about a lot of things. I really enjoyed it. I'd been wanting to see it and then it like you when it first came
Hmm.
out, it's tough to see everything, especially end of year trying to scramble, so I just kind of fell
Especially
off
last
my
year was we
yeah.
had embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, we definitely did. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that you put this on the list so I could watch it this week. It's sort of like a little New Year's kind of thing too. I think it's the
Yeah.
reflectiveness on it too sort of is I think
Yeah.
good this
True.
time of year to kind of think back on what simple joys that you have in your life and focus on those, you know?
Right. Right. And how do you show up and how do you treat people, like
Right.
you've been talking? I also want to say the movie is very cinematic, right? Like this movie, this kind of movie can be sometimes kind of boxed in, or human stories can feel very visually not striking, or any of those things that, cinematographers and people who care more about that sort of stuff can be up in arms about. But I just want to call out that this is a very cinematic portrayal of a human story and this city, but it's not overindulgent either. It's in service of this person, the story that they're telling, but you do feel like this is not a TV movie.
No, that's a really good point, actually, that I was surprised by, to be honest, because from the
Yeah.
trailers, and it is a very simple movie that is just
Yeah.
about a person existing, and you could tell it visually in a very simple way. Even though he boxes it in literally by the fact that it's a 4:3 aspect ratio, which I thought was an
True.
interesting choice. I guess a kind of throwback to Ozu films that I think he's
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
reference here, but. It is very cinematic and beautiful cinematography, great use of color in this film. I think you're exactly right. Like he's taking this simple story and it could have been told in a simple way, but instead he just can't help himself with how beautiful this movie is and just makes Tokyo so beautiful too.
Exactly. And it sort of elevates the movie. It envelopes you, engulfs you because of that. And of course, the music, the choice of all the 70s tracks that he puts in his
Yeah.
cassettes, it's all very purposeful. I kept listening to the Perfect Day song days after I watched this movie because it just sort of takes over you. So
Yeah.
yeah, great use of all the different mise-en-scène elements in the movie as well.
Hi there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I review a new release and then discuss 6 other movies made by that film's actor or director and how they shaped us. Subscribe right now or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.